All right, the time is almost 3 o'clock for those of you that are already here. We are just going to wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join in, and then we are going to hop into today's webinar. I was muted there. All right, everyone, it is 3 o'clock Eastern time, so it is time for our webinar. While we wait for everyone to join, I'm going to go ahead and put a poll in today's chat to give you just a quick starter question. So you should be able to see that. Okay, it looks like we've got a full house today. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. There we go. All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar to introduce ZoneCapture, our OCR AP automation tool by Zone & Co. To go over today's demonstration, we have my team, Nikki Brown, Technical Account Manager, Tony Brown, as well as myself, Ellen Windhorst, U.S. Sales Representative. I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to Nikki and Tony to introduce them as well, to introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the demo. Nikki, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ellen. Thank you guys for joining today. So I'm Nikki Brown. I started off here as a solution consultant and just recently moved to a technical account manager role. I actually do have an accounting and AP background as a NetSuite end user, so I'm very familiar with how important AP automation can be for your business. And I'll be walking you through the demo today. Tony, floor is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm an application specialist. That means I'm in charge of the technical side of things. So I make sure everything gets installed properly and customized the way you need it. And I'm mostly here to answer questions today.
Thank you so much, Nikki and Tony, for joining us today to help with the demonstration as well as answering all the questions. Let's get into the agenda. So today we'll be discussing Zone & Co's mission, jumping into ZoneCapture features, especially the new releases. Then we're going to go into a demonstration. We also have a sneak peek at what's to come, so that's huge. I know a lot of our customers and soon-to-be clients are excited to see what's on the roadmap. And then we'll also be going over pricing, implementation, and support. We will also follow up with a question and answer with Tony Brown, but this is a very interactive demo, so please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring as we go. So let's talk about Zone & Co's mission. Previously, Zone & Co is actually a NetSuite solution provider. That is no longer the case. We are strictly focused on providing products for NetSuite users. We really want to enhance the experience with inside of NetSuite, and then also just bring back the joy to NetSuite users, especially in the finance department. So one of the suite apps that we've actually built to make it easier for our finance team is Scan & Capture, now known as ZoneCapture. Scan & Capture was the previous branding for ZoneCapture, but back in the acquisition in February of 2022, when we joined the Zone & Co team, it was rebranded to ZoneCapture. And with that rebranding, it also came with a lot of new functionalities, and we are excited to go over that for you today. ZoneCapture is the suite app that will bring the vendor bills and credits into NetSuite with minimal to no manual entry on your user's part. Let's go into how that works. ZoneCapture is powered by OCR technology. Our OCR reader is Abby. Her accuracy rate is anywhere between 86 to 98%, which is a very high accuracy rating. Not only do we provide a very high accuracy rate, but we actually started out in Europe and we had clients pull us to the US. So we do have a global presence and we're able to support multi-language and multi-currency. Matter of fact, our OCR reader can handle over 200 languages. Also, the OCR will reduce time spent on manual entry. Another key benefit is Abby is the top-rated OCR in 2021 and 2022. Now that we've talked about what ZoneCapture is powered by, our OCR technology, let's jump into some of the key benefits of ZoneCapture. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is a native Suite app, so you do not have to leave your NetSuite screen. We also have a friendly user interface. Our developers really love NetSuite, so when they are creating our applications, they really want to have that same look and feel. You'll see that in today's demonstration. You'll also see a split screen view, clickable auto learning, and most importantly, one of the most beloved features by our clients is the three-way matching. Let's get into the workflow. Once we're finished with the workflow, we're going to go over a couple of enhancements, and then we'll go right into the demonstration. You would receive an email address for each subsidiary that you currently have in place. That email address will be considered your OCR email. Any PDF that is sent to that OCR email will be brought into NetSuite with minimal to no manual entry on your user's part. Once they bring those, or once those bills are inside of NetSuite, your users will be able to go to their dashboard, get into those bills, and make adjustments or edits if needed. Once they've finished making those adjustments, they can click Save. And then the approval workflow will take over from there. It's very important that we go over the approval workflow today because it can be any approval workflow. Say you already have a NetSuite approval workflow in place, or you may have had a partner scripted an approval workflow. You could want to use ZoneCo's Zone approval workflow. Either way, any approval workflow that you currently have in place, we adhere to. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the new features that we will be demonstrating today. Nikki will go over the new user interface that will show you the filtering options, a preview of the PDF file, alerting of potential duplicates, dynamic reflection of change, PDF viewer enhancement, and direct notes on an incoming bill. Here are some other key features that you might want to look out for today. That is highlight data, instant upload, and block records when edited by another user. So we have a lot of fun things to cover today, and I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to Nikki to start with the demonstration.
Thank you, Alan. You touched on a lot of good information. So now we're going to take a look at that a little bit more in depth in my demo environment. So we did have a lot of recently introduced new key features in our 2.1 and 2.2 releases. So we're just going to be touching and highlighting some of those features today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so what you should see here is my NetSuite dashboard. Can everybody see that okay? Actually, I'm gonna go back out to my dashboard.
Yes, we can see.
Perfect, thanks. So as previously mentioned, this is a native NetSuite solution. So after the bundle would be installed within your NetSuite system, the look and feel would remain the same. You'll just see a few new menu paths. Specifically under your transactions menu, you'll see a scan and capture path. And then also under setup, you'll have a scan and capture setup. And this is where a lot of the configuration is held. So just clicking into the subsidiary setup, you are able to have separate and unique configurations per subsidiary. So you can see here, I have 5 individual subsidiary configurations in this demo environment. We want to give users more flexibility in choosing how to configure each subsidiary individually. I'm going to drill into my ZoneCo USA configuration and touch on a few things in here that we've introduced. So this auto processing feature, when this is enabled, it's going to allow the system to automatically process incoming transactions from vendors of your choosing into actual NetSuite transactions without any human interference. And it will respect any potential existing approval workflows. It's enabled within here on a subsidiary level and also on the individual vendor record. Scroll down just a little bit. In this release, we have also introduced a new design and how the ZoneCapture application will process and store emails inside of NetSuite. So when you have this feature enabled, what will happen is after you save your transactions, the Suite app will actually attach the original received email to the created transaction, and that'll be held under the communication subtab. Going a little bit down in this email auto response setting. So additionally, we've added some new functionality that'll allow the system to automatically send a reply to the email sender to inform them when their email and data have been received and processed correctly. and also when their data has been received, but it couldn't be processed in full or only partially. A common example would be in the case that multiple files were attached in the email and there was a file included that wasn't a PDF. So in these fields here, you're able to set up templates for both scenarios, select the employee that the reply sender should come from, and also have the ability in this auto response field if you wanted to copy an internal colleague. And then we also provide some additional field help on any of these fields. You can click on these and it'll give you further information. Okay, so a common question we get asked is, how do the vendor bills actually get into NetSuite? So as Ellen mentioned earlier, one option we have is using that native NetSuite email address, also referred to as a plugin. And that is where your vendor bill emails would get sent to that particular plugin, and it's going to process the attachments from there. So this is a list of my subsidiaries that I have in this demo environment. I have 5 individual plugins set up for each of the subsidiaries that I have in NetSuite. You do have another option for multiple subsidiaries. You can opt to have one email address where all the bills and credits go through the OCR. It's going to read that subsidiary information from the PDF and connect it to the subsidiary in NetSuite, matching to the subsidiary name, address, and even tax ID number. And that'll look something like the single email capturing. So when those emails are received through the plugin with those vendor bills or credits attached, the OCR is going to kick in, it's going to scan the PDF details, populate the header information into what will be your mirrored bill entry screen. And you're going to see a list of those items that went through the scanning engine successfully in a queue that you'll access here right from your portlet on your dashboard. So just to give you a better idea of what that looks like, I'm going to walk you through how that process works. So let's say I get an email from a vendor, has a bill attached that needs to be processed. So looking at my attachment here, this particular bill needs to go to my ZoneCo USA subsidiary. So just going back to that email plugin listing, what I can do is just grab the email plugin for my ZoneCo USA, and I will copy it and come back to my email, and I'm simply just going to forward this. Or if you get to a point where you're comfortable setting up an auto forwarding rule, absolutely you can do that. And you can also save these email plugins within your own email account, and you would have just a contact and you could send an email to that particular subsidiary. So just to save you a little bit of time, and then you simply just hit send, and it's going to then forward it to your plugin. So by reviewing our logic and improving our coding and mapping data, we've significantly reduced our scanning, loading, and processing times. So when you're sending that email to the email plugin, a script is going to run in the background that'll push the data to the OCR station and then pull the data back into NetSuite. And this process takes approximately 15 minutes. But you're almost able to immediately see that data in an auto report that's going to be held under your transactions menu. Just going back to scan and capture here. Under this audit reports, this will give you visibility into what's being sent. If an item has been sent through the OCR, if it's still waiting to go through the OCR, you'll be able to see the subsidiary that it got sent to and even the attachment. So this audit report will give you complete visibility. And also you can see there is going to be a folder that's set up within your file cabinet. This is where all the PDFs are going to be stored. So you can see here that I've opted to set up a folder for each one of my subsidiaries. And this is the folder that's going to store those PDFs that get sent to that plugin. Okay, so for timing purposes today, I sent the vendor bill in for that particular bill for Adam's Business Supplies earlier. And when I drill into my incoming queue, what you'll see here, that item is going to sit at the top of my incoming queue, and it's going to show the status of ready for processing. So here you'll see it sits at the top. In our 2.2 release, though, we've actually introduced an alternative to sending those bills to the email plugin, and you're now able to manually upload PDFs to directly create those bills to process. So with this feature, you're able to upload multiple PDF files at once, up to a maximum of 20 files. You can pre-select the subsidiary. So to do this, you would go back to your transactions menu, and under that scan and capture path, it's going to be held here under manually upload bills to process. So in this case, if I want to, for that Adams business supplies example, let's say I've already saved my PDF and an Excel file, for example, that would maybe show the order breakdown. So I can just grab the subsidiary that I want this to be connected to. In this case, I'm looking for my vendor, Adams Business Supplies. So my files are saved in my computer. So I can just simply highlight these, drag them over, or you'll have the ability to click on upload PDF files and you'd be able to grab the files from there. If anything other than a PDF tries to get uploaded, like you can see in this case, it does immediately display an error message for you. So invalid file types would not be processed any further. So in this case, I can click on process. You do have an option to skip the OCR scanning. Upon processing, it's going to create that bill to process record. But in the instance you just wanted to attach or only want to attach the PDF to the bill to process record and process the data manually, you can check this box to skip that OCR scanning. So I'm going to go ahead and click on process. So what's going to happen now, it's going to direct me to the bill to process record that's being created. This progress section will let you know the timing of that. It typically just takes a couple of seconds. And then what you'll see now, once it's gone through the complete process, it's going to create that bill to process record and take me right to the bill to process screen. So let's just give it just a second to load. And please keep in mind throughout any of the examples that we look at today, because this is an interactive session, if you have any questions that are coming up, feel free to post those and Tony can field those. And then we should also should have some time at the end. So once you click on process, it runs through. It's now taking me to my bill to process record. And from here, what I can do is just click on save. And this is going to take me to my incoming queue with this transaction now uploaded. And in just a second, when it takes me to that incoming queue, I'll show you, you'll be able to see what method it was imported or uploaded over in your origin column. So the first example we looked at, I sent it to the plugin. It's going to show PDF capture. But in the example we just did, it's going to show PDF capture with manual upload. So you'll have visibility into which method was used. So this is our recently enhanced user interface. A lot of great updates have been released in our last 2 releases regarding this new UI. Biggest thing that I like is being able to actually view the PDF right from this incoming screen without having to drill into the transaction. So I can click on my PDF icon and it's immediately going to open up for you and give you visibility into the PDF that was attached for that particular transaction. So that one is really beneficial. You are able to move columns just by using a drag and drop method. You can rearrange these in any way that you would like. And we've also introduced a notification for when a bill to process record is being edited by another user. If you have this current editor column visible in your view, this will show you specifically who's in that record. The line will be grayed out. So you can see here, my colleague Monica is currently in this record. So it's not going to let me access it until she exits that record. Okay. Anything that you see in blue is a hyperlink. You are able to click on this and it will open up in a new tab for you. So any changes in that overview are refreshed dynamically in the background. So there's no need for you to keep refreshing that page manually to get the current status. Okay, there are some filtering options that we do provide, and you can access those here through this filters icon where you're able to add a single layer filter or multi-layer filter if you wanted to maybe drill down and just look at a particular subsidiary. And then also wanted to look at maybe an individual supplier. You can have these filters in place. They are user specific and will remain in place until you remove the filter. So you'll see the number icon up here will show you how many you have. And then you'll also have your funnel icons at your column headers. So I can just come in here and remove my filters and it'll take me right back to my full view. You're also able to get to a few different options by clicking on these 3 dots. This will allow you to sort. You can hide columns, show columns from here, pin and unpin. So you'll have that available here to select right from your column headers. When this inline editing toggle is enabled, we recently extended the scope of fields that this is available for. So if you have that inline editing on with your invoice document number, invoice date, amount, and memo, you are able to actually click into here and type directly. So that was just recently extended when this inline editing toggle is on. We do match to purchase order. So if you look at our purchase order column, we're going to display for you the PO number that was connected along with the purchase order status. In the case that an incoming transaction had been matched to less than 6 purchase orders, it's going to give you an individual link to each of the purchase orders that were connected. And you can click on that and it'll take you directly open that PO. If it's connected to more than 6 purchase orders, what you would then see is a hyperlink that'll display more. And then that's going to open up a different box for you where you'd be able to see all the connected POs with the detailed information about that current status. Another really nice one that we got a lot of good feedback on this is a duplicate detection. So we have 2 types of duplicate detection in place. What you'll see for duplicated incoming, that's going to let you know that there is at least 1 active and not yet processed bill to process record with the same document type, subsidiary, vendor, and document number. When you click on the alert, it's going to bring up a new box for you that's going to show you a list of the potential duplicates. You'll be able to view the PDF from in here and even get to that item's bill to process screen to see additional details. For the duplicated transaction, this is going to go a little bit further. It's going to look and see if there is at least 1 existing vendor bill or credit already in NetSuite, whether it was processed through ZoneCapture or via native NetSuite. If you click on the duplicated transaction, this is going to, again, show you that potential duplicate, if it was able to find an existing vendor bill, and you'll be able to follow this hyperlink and it will direct you to that transaction. Okay, let me just scroll back over here. The ID hyperlink that you see in this column will take you to our bill to process screen. I know I've mentioned that a couple times, but if you click in the bill to process field, it's going to direct you to our, we have a 3-screen view, which I'll show you here in just a second. So in the instance that maybe you didn't have a vendor in place at the time a bill came in, it's going to look like this and show matching and complete. This edit will also take you to that bill to process screen from the line. So if I click into here, what you'll be able to see is the attachment that was sent to the plugin that'll display for you on the left. On the right side, you're going to be able to see that body of the email along with the subject, sender, and recipient information. And the middle section is going to show you a few different things here. The subsidiary that it was connected to, which is of course going to be based off of which plugin it was sent to. So if you ever needed to change that subsidiary, you could just select the correct one from here and save your transaction to update it. Once you have your subsidiary in place, the vendor dropdown that you see is going to be a list of current vendors that were set up for that subsidiary. And then once you have a vendor in place, you'll then have complete visibility into if there are any purchase orders for that particular vendor. So another option you would have if you didn't see this vendor, in this case, Adobe sent me a bill. At the time it came in, my vendor hadn't been set up yet. I can see that Adobe is in here. So once I select this, you can see a few different options populate. When you save it, it'll return you back to your incoming queue. Or if you're able to want to actually proceed in processing the bill, you would just click Save and Process. But just to show you another option that you do have, if that vendor still hadn't shown up in that list, from this Actions dropdown, you can create a vendor. Here you can take advantage of our split screen view, and you're able to input the vendor details right from here. And another feature that we just released is that you're actually able to utilize our clickable PDF functionality when setting up a new vendor. And we're also going to take a look at that a little bit later when we're processing a bill. So with a clickable PDF, if you put your cursor in the desired NetSuite field, so let's say in this case, I've got email address for payment notification, and on my bill, they've provided me with a remittance email address. You put your mouse in the desired field, you can click on these orange rectangular boxes. This is the specific data that was captured. And once you click on it, it's going to populate those details into that NetSuite screen for you. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and grab Adobe from my vendor dropdown. and just show you what happens after the fact. I'm just going to save it. I want to return to my incoming screen. And initially we saw that line had a status of matching incomplete. It's now going to be updated and it's going to show ready for processing. So here you can see my line is now ready to go. So going back to the Adams Business Supplies bill, I'm going to click into process. We're going to look at some functionality that you can put in place to really streamline the coding of your bills. So when you're processing a vendor bill, the OCR is going to read your page detail, line detail, pull in that header information, including your bill number, invoice date, and total, and populate that into the correct fields in NetSuite. And all of this information is going to be visible via our split screen view, where you're going to see both the PDF and the NetSuite bill entry screen on the right. This will be side by side. Enhancements were included in our 2.1 release on the PDF viewer specifically. You're now able to quickly navigate through multiple pages. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, and then you have the ability here to even download or print if you needed to. So our existing clickable PDF functionality has been extended to where it'll highlight the source data. So when the header field on a vendor record, bill, or credit form is pre-populated with the captured data, when clicking onto that specific transaction body field, that source data will be highlighted on the PDF. So you're able to see where it came from. So this is just going to make that verification of the data easier and more clear during the processing of your transactions, because with one click, you'll be able to locate that source data and it'll show as a green rectangle. So here's my reference number. That's the field that was pulled, my dollar amount, and even my date. So you'll be able to see the specific location. We do have some auto learning that a user can put in place on the header level portion as well, utilizing that clickable PDF. When it's used on the header level fields of a vendor bill, the system's going to automatically learn from that click and point behavior and try to apply it to the next incoming vendor bill. And this auto learning will work on any of the non-standard fields. So looking at this bill, let's say I always wanted to capture my shipping date into my memo field. So what I can do is just put my cursor in the memo field in NetSuite, and from my PDF, I'm going to click on my date. It will also work with a group of text. So if I wanted to grab this whole group, I can just take my mouse, select that, and it's going to pull in the full group of text. It does work for other field types as well. If you have a drop down, for example, it'll work with those field types also. After you save the bill, it's then going to have some trained field mapping in place for that vendor. So it's going to remember the specific field location from the PDF where that clickable PDF was used, and it's going to pull the data from those same fields and populate the new information each time a bill comes in for that vendor. And any of the trained field mapping in place is going to be visible on the vendor record as well. So this functionality can be very useful for those fields when you're always needing to pull details from your bill without having to copy and paste it each time. Just scroll down a little bit here. So the ZoneCapture application will also allow you to easily create a defaulting rule. The transaction line defaulting feature is going to allow your user to set up a predefined rule that can execute the default coding of transaction lines on a standalone vendor bill. The defaulting logic is going to be based off of the line description from the incoming bill, and then your user is going to define a word or word combination that's going to trigger that default coding. So in this example for my office supplies bill, you can see that my last line is actually for shipping and is not pertaining to the office supplies expense. So in this case, I use the word shipping to set up a rule. It's been captured on my line already, and it's already has my coding pre-populated. To set up a new rule in this matching rule column, what you would do is from your dropdown, you could select new, and it's going to prompt you to set up your new rule. But I'm just going to open up our current rule and show you how the setup works. So you would define a name for your rule in this field. You're going to tell it the record types that you want it to apply to. So in this case, you can select vendor bill, vendor credits, or both. The vendor will populate, but if you wanted to extend this rule to multiple vendors, you'd be able to do so here. Or if you want it to apply to all your vendors, you would just check this box. Same thing with your subsidiary. You can have an individual subsidiary, multiple, or check that box to apply it to all of your subsidiaries. Next, you have to define how it should be matching. So your text matching criteria, in this case, I've selected contains. And then once you provide your text, in this case, it was shipping, what's then going to happen, you're then going to provide the coding information that you want to default. So I have my freight expense GL account. I've selected my facilities for department with my Chicago corporate location and an internal materials. And if you had any custom segment fields, you can also extend that in these rules as well. Once you save your rule and your rule is in place, the system's going to automatically apply that rule to the line, just like you're seeing here. And the next time a bill comes in from Adams Business Supplies and it has that word shipping on there, it's going to automatically catch that rule and default with this exact coding. You are able to set these rules up ahead of time too, before bills are going through the OCR, and that's going to be done through the scan and capture setup. At any time, though, on both the header or line level, no matter what defaults, you're still able to come in and make any necessary adjustments or changes. But specifically, if there was a bill or credit sent for processing and the OCR didn't capture the data from the PDF as it should have, you'll have the ability to click on this report data capture quality. And what this is going to do, it's going to detail the record ID along with the vendor. It's going to ask you to put in a brief description of what needs to be captured differently. This is going to generate a case that gets sent to our support team. And our OCR has machine learning capabilities, so our support team can log into the scanning engine, see how the data was initially captured, and using that point and click technology, they can train it to read the data differently. It'll sync back to that particular vendor, and when a bill comes in next time for that vendor, it's going to have that new training in place. So coming back to my bill, I've reviewed everything. I'm ready to save this. So once I click on save, this is when it's going to create that official bill record. If you did have an existing approval workflow, this is where that would pick up. If you're utilizing our separate ZoneCapture SuiteApp, you'll see that there's going to be an additional button here to actually submit it for approval. And that's then going to get routed to the first person in that workflow. Once that official bill record has been created, a copy of the PDF is automatically going to attach under your file subtab. And then going back to that subsidiary configuration we looked at earlier, if it's enabled to attach a copy of the email to the created transaction, that would be visible here under messages. And this does run on a script, so it will automatically attach the email upon the completion of that script running. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about our three-way matching purchase order side of things. So when processing a bill that's pertaining to a PO, our application is going to automatically load the lines from the PO that are connected to a purchase order and bring those lines in that are available to bill. So in order to connect and display the PO, like you're seeing here in this purchase order column, first the PO would need to be referenced on the PDF, and it has to be in a pending billing status. If you're using the bill in advance of receipt function, we're going to consider all the lines available to bill, key point being that the PO will be in that pending billing status. If the bill didn't reference the PO or the PO hadn't been approved or received yet, then utilizing that bill to process screen, once that piece got addressed internally, the purchase order would need to manually be selected in that bill to process screen, similar to how we connected the vendor manually. There could be a discrepancy between your vendor bill, purchase order, and item receipt, and our three-way matching feature is going to provide you the ability to choose how the lines from the inbound invoice should be matched to the lines. It's going to highlight those lines that aren't matching, and these are going to be color-coded so your user can easily see if there are lines that are going to require user action. And that color coding is driven off of a purchase order validation rule that you'll have in place on your vendor record. So we fully support partial billing. That is a common question. We support partial billing as well as multiple POs to one bill. I'm going to open up the vendor record for one of my PO vendors and just show you a list of those PO validation rules, and then we'll process the partial billing example. So from your vendor record, there's going to be a field under your scan and capture. It's held here under general settings. So these are the rules that you have to choose from. It's one rule per vendor. So the first two are going to look at it from a header perspective. The remaining rules are going to look at it from a line perspective. Once your rule is in place, that's what's going to drive the color coding when you start processing that bill connected to a PO. And the rule will also display for you in the header portion of your bill entry screen. So for my partial billing, just looking at this PO, we have a few different line items on this PO. 3 of my 4 lines have already been received against and have been billed for, leaving 1 line that hasn't been received yet. So the bill we're getting ready to process is going to be for the remaining quantity of my first line. So I'm just going to click into process. So what you're going to see here, my purchase order 235 was being referenced on my bill. So it's going to pull in any lines that have been received and are available to bill, compare them to what was captured on the PDF. And in this case, I have rule 3 in place. It's going to look at my item numbers. So my item number from my purchase order line, look at the item number on my bill. And in this case, it's a match. So it's going to display my line in green. Green's going to let you know that it met the criteria from that PO validation rule. And if you scroll over, you'll have visibility into that PO status, the specific purchase order number it pulled from, and the line number from the PO. If you see anything in yellow, that's going to let you know that it was a partial match and it'll be set to a status of verify. And anything in red is going to let you know that it didn't meet the criteria from the rule. It is set to unclear and it will zero out your quantity and rate. User action will be required because there is a discrepancy. So just to show you the multiple purchase order example, I have one bill here that references 3 purchase orders. So when I process this, what you're going to see here, it's going to bring in all the lines from the POs being referenced that are available to bill. If you ever needed to add a PO to a bill, you can do so in that PO dropdown from our bill to process screen, and it'll pull that additional PO detail in. So on my bill here for Star Consulting, what you'll see here, I've got 3 different purchase orders being referenced and connected to this bill. The lines that you're seeing in green are going to pertain to the different lines from the 3 individual purchase orders. And in this case, I have some lines that are highlighted in blue, and that's simply because you have lines from your PO that have been received and they're able to be billed. However, you're not actually being billed for them on your PDF. Okay. So that wraps up the demo portion of my sessions or of the session today. Thank you for letting me show you the newest features of ZoneCapture. We do feel these enhancements have brought a really strong improvement to the overall user experience with more flexibility and simplicity when processing your AP. So I will stop sharing and hand it back over to Ellen.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for the demonstration. Everyone, thank you for watching and staying by with us. I'm going to go ahead and send a quick poll through to see what you liked most about today's demo. While you answer that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and go over some of the key takeaways that we've had today. So today, Nikki discussed the new user interface, PDF and email storage, duplicate detection, split screen view on the vendor bill, creating new vendor options, auto learning, and 3-way match. We've added a lot to our solution, and a lot of clients are quickly falling in love with the new enhancements. But what's to come? Our development team has been working hard on some of the most highly requested features, and they are going to be coming soon, and we are so excited for that webinar in the future. And those enhancements are going to be the 3-way match and auto processing for purchase-related bills. I know some of you on this call today have been asking for that, so it is good to know that we are on it. That is on our roadmap, and it is a priority to us. So shout out to our development team. You guys are rock stars, and we're excited to see what's to come. Also, we wanted to touch a little bit on pricing today. So we have 2 pricing options. We have standard implementation and premium implementation. Standard implementation is typically what our clients take. However, if you are a client that may have 15+ subsidiaries or located globally and need a little bit more project manager support, there is premium implementation available, and that is $7,000. So the one-time implementation fee of $1,500, the premium implementation of $7,000. You get those to choose from. And then we also have a monthly subscription package. We have clients scanning in 100 vendors bills a month, but we also have clients that scan in over 50,000 vendor bills a month. So if you do need additional pricing for those high volumes, please reach out and we will assist you with that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into implementation real quick, just to kind of go over that, and then we'll go ahead and hand the floor over to Tony to answer some questions. What the implementation would look like, and one of the main questions is when can you bring us in? We've had clients bring us in implementation stage right when they go live, or they've been live for 10 years. It would be installed into your sandbox or production. We would set up the configuration. You would test on your own time. You'd reach out to your project manager for question and answers, and then you're going to go ahead and go live into ZoneCapture and ready to use it in your NetSuite instance. Our implementation typically takes 2 to 4 weeks. So that is a pretty seamless implementation for your team. Native SuiteApp, so not much legwork. And then we also have standard support and premium support. Standard support is typically what our clients take. You know, they do have a ticketing system. But if you are a client that does need a little bit more training, a little bit more support for your teams, there is a premium support available, and that is $500 per month. That's something that you want to look into. We would definitely be happy to help you. I'm going to go ahead and hand the floor over to Tony Brown to answer some of the questions.
Thanks, Ellen. We do have a couple questions here. Somebody's asking if if we match items from the vendor bill strictly on name and number, or that they were saying it seemed like that. So just to clarify, there are 6 different PO matching rules that you can choose from. One of them is reliant on the item name or number and the vendor code matching. The rest use other criteria such as the line amount or quantity or the unit price or rate. For the rule that does rely on the item name and number, that currently is you need to make sure that the vendor code is populated on the item record because that's what it will use to match. So if you have generic items that you use a custom field, it won't necessarily cover that right now, but if you have like an inventory item that you do have regularly purchased from a vendor, then that will should match correctly. Ellen, someone is asking why we would recommend our product over NetSuite's AP automation. Would you mind taking that question?
All right. Ellen, you're on mute.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I would be happy to take that question. With NetSuite's new release, they definitely have a great product out there, but there are some clients where their needs weren't really met. And that may be because they handle multi-currency, multi-language. They might need to match to purchase orders. Also, ours comes with a drag and drop feature, but we also have an OCR email. So we're able to reduce time with that manual process of having to drag and drop. You're just going to go ahead and forward those emails on. So we do save time for teams. We also support the multi-language, multi-currency, and multi-subsidiary. You can have 1 subsidiary or 10 subsidiaries. We have clients with 99 subsidiaries. So that's really where we shine, is we're able to offer a little bit more support with clients that may have more use cases.
Thank you, Ellen.
Not a problem with those other questions, the high level questions, Tony?
Not currently. So I'll just cover some frequently asked questions then. Many times people wonder where exactly they need to be in their implementation process to take on a project like this. If you are already established in NetSuite, then there shouldn't be any issue at all. You probably have all the things you need. If you are just getting started with NetSuite or in the process of implementation, there's no harm in signing up ahead of time. It can be beneficial if you know what we can and can't do or when we need to do things along the process. But the main requirements are normally having your vendors set up, having your chart of accounts set up, and then your subsidiaries as well. And most of those things do come fairly early in the process. So it's not normally a major problem of any kind.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tony. And I know we are coming up at the end of our time for today's webinar. So thank you everyone so much for joining. But before we head off, I did want to let you know that we do have additional Suite apps that help NetSuite users, such as Zone Reconcile, Zone Approvals, Zone Billing, which is the heart of Zone & Co., and then Zone Payments. If you like today's webinar, which definitely love the feedback with the polls, quizzes, question and answers. So thank you guys for being so interactive. But if you love today's webinar, please join us on March 29th as well as April 20th, where we'll be going over Zone Billing and Zone Payments. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tony and Nikki. It was a pleasure having everyone today. And if you're interested, reach out. We'll be here to help.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.